Hey family, what's up? I'm recording this video because I'm not 100% sure that I'll see you all in person, and I committed myself to at least sharing information that I have to help us live a long and healthy life. So I try to be brief, try to be quick, talk a little bit about my own journey to getting to a place where I can control my own blood pressure and cholesterol without the use of drugs and just other things that have been beneficial to finding a better way of taking care of myself. So my journey really did begin with learning how to control my blood pressure without the use of medication. And for a few years, when I was working full-time in a corporate environment, amongst other things that played a role in my lifestyle, food consumption, things like that, I was having high blood pressure. I didn't know it. I didn't know it until one day I went to the nurse's office and I just wasn't feeling well. They decided to take my blood pressure and it was something like 160/85. I remember the 160 number specifically because it's the highest number. And I went back to my desk. I can't remember what the nurse said. I don't even know if the nurse kind of made me aware that this could be potentially dangerous. And the lady that I sat next to made me understand that that's not good. So I didn't really change much of anything at that time. I was much younger. This was probably 10 years ago, for sure, somewhere in that time range. So I was in my 30s. And I continued to kind of have my lifestyle as normal. I didn't measure my blood pressure regularly enough to really know what it was on a daily or a weekly basis. But every time I did measure it, it was always higher than what they say it should be, which is the 120/80, right? I never had 120/80. I just kind of accepted the fact that I probably have higher blood pressure for various reasons. One, because as a Black person, we kind of have high blood pressure. If it's in your family, if your mother, grandmother, father, etc. have it, and it's not something that is uncommon. And I just said, okay, I'll figure it out. But as time went on, several doctors were making me aware of the fact that I had high blood pressure. I was becoming pre-diabetic. My weight was up. And at each step, I just kind of accepted the fact or whatever they were stating, which was fact-based. It was, I mean, you measure the blood pressure, it's factually high. So I just accepted the fact that at that time, those were the conditions. And I never really wanted to take medication because that was the next step, was basically prescribing medication to control your blood pressure. And I think that was really the red line for me. I never wanted to be on medication or drugs to sustain my way of living. And I just never accepted that. So thankfully I had that component to be a catalyst to help me get to the point where I could make all the changes that I needed to make. So I'm gonna just talk about what I did to make sure that I can control my blood pressure without the use of prescription drugs or medication, and also to lower my A1C and control my glucose levels. The drug or the medication that they prescribed to initially begin controlling my blood pressure was a water pill, which I consider to be a gateway drug. After you start the water pill, if things get worse or things get better, great, hopefully you can come off the water pill. But how often does it happen? Especially if you don't change anything else in your lifestyle. If you don't change how much you're exercising, the food that you're consuming, the drinks that you're consuming, the snacks, the sugar, what's coming next is probably another drug. So the water pill, I think I took maybe on 2 or 3 occasions, and I was like, this isn't something that I want to do. So what I did change, and what I just want to suggest is the following. I increased my exercise combined with exposure to the sun. So it wasn't just the mere fact of exercising. If that's all you can do because you work on 3rd shift and you can't get any rest, well, you have to rest during the day or something like that. If you just cannot get exposure to the sun for whatever reason, or maybe if you're allergic to the sun, perhaps you shouldn't be getting too much sun exposure. But for me, increased exercise combined with exposure to the sun played a major role. Changing my environment, and for whoever you are, that could be just not being in environments where there's a lot of smoke, which is easier to do nowadays. Back in the club, sometimes you could smoke in a club, or being in places where you might be tempted to probably have the wrong foods or something like that. You can't just be like going to the food court knowing you're gonna stop at the Krispy Kreme or something like that. Or if you do stop at the Krispy Kreme, just having one or none would be best, donuts. So changing your environment, doing what you can to influence the environment that you're in so that you're not tempted to fall back into those unhealthy habits. Next thing I did is reduce my consumption of meat, which for me was relatively easy because I haven't eaten beef or pork for decades now. And the meats that I did eat were chicken, turkey, fish, lamb, very rare occasion, bison, things that were grass-fed. If you do eat meat, try to have grass-fed beef. If you can get local grass-fed, that's probably even better. But reducing meat also played a major contributing role to reducing my high blood pressure levels. Implementing fasting to my lifestyle, just starting with 4-8 hours, increasing incrementally to 16 hours, 24 hours, and then eventually multiple days. So you can have any variation of a fast. You can do a liquid only fast, you can do a juice fast, you can do a whole food fast where you're just consuming those things, organic fruit, organic vegetables. So you don't have to just completely stop eating from out of nowhere. But the benefit in fasting is you get to learn what your body actually responds to and what it's accepting as normal. I also eliminated concentrated sodium, such as what you get in those instant noodles or ramen packs, the corn starches, those things that are packed into pre-made foods. So if you're cooking, I don't even know what to call it anymore, but those flavored rices that might be like broccoli cheese rice and it's got all the condensed seasoning in it already, well, that's got concentrated sodium, which for me had a negative impact. I eliminated the consumption of vegetable oils, which included canola oil, vegetable oil, all the seed oils that look all nice and golden when you go to the grocery store, just like you can see straight through the whole bottle. Those oils have specifically omega-6 fatty acids, and they don't have any omega-3. And what that really does is it causes your body to experience inflammation and increased oxidation. And if you think of it as iron, like a car, when you see an old school car that used to have an iron or ferrous bumper, and you would see it rusting, well, that's oxidation. And when that happens inside your body, your organs, bones, your tissue, your cells are experiencing oxidation or internal. Don't quote me on this, but because I don't think we can rust as humans, but the diseases and inflammation that persist essentially causes our body to break down. So the vegetable oils, the consumption of vegetable oils, canola oils, all those oils that are omega-6 fatty acids that don't have, especially if they don't have any omega-3, because the omega-3 will kind of balance things out, will cause you to deteriorate. You'll have inflammation, be swollen, your ankles will be swollen, things like that. And I replace those oils with olive oil and avocado oil, which are more expensive, but you can't beat the payoff. What you're paying at the grocery store versus what you're paying at the doctor, it doesn't even match. And we're not even talking about how you feel or how I felt. So changing those oils out made a major difference in my results. I also eliminated refined sugar, refined bleached flour, anything that's like refined and it's not natural, it's not in its whole state with the fiber attached, is not doing much good for you. I know sugar is one of the things that we've been kind of oblivious of in some of the foods that we consume. Of course, we know it's in like pop, soda, sweet tea, candy, things like that, but it's in ketchup, it's in ranch dressing, it's in a lot of foods that you consume, and that accumulation of the sugar is what's contributing to your A1C levels or your high sugar if you're a type 2 diabetic. So replacing that with natural organic foods that have the fiber attached. So like, okay, if you don't eat sugar anymore, what can I replace it with? Well, you got watermelon, you got bananas, you got plantains, you got mangoes, pineapples. There are a lot of fruits, natural foods, especially if you can get them organic, that have the sweet flavor without the negative impact of it being a refined sugar. That fiber being attached is very important. Same thing with flour. A lot of flour has the germ removed, which is the part that makes the flour have a shorter shelf life. So when you remove the germ, you have a longer shelf life, which allows the companies to keep more product on the shelves for a longer period of time. But that germ component, for example, if you were to make flour out of corn, or whatever you have, corn might be meal, but if you were to make flour out of, let's say, watermelon seeds, the flour that you make out of crushing and grinding the watermelon seeds would have the germ attached. What companies do is they send the flour that they make through a process that removes the germ, and they also enrich, also bleach the flour so it looks, really, really powdery white, or I should say snow white. And that's a sign that that's not good for you. The body doesn't know what to do with the food that's unstable and doesn't have the natural components. Yeah, it's been enriched, and then let's say nutrients have been put back in, but it's not the type of nutrition that your body needs to live a stable, healthy life. And so you become inflamed, and inflammation is probably the biggest culprit to all the disease that we're experiencing. So that swollen leg or whatever experience you may be having, maybe stiffness, if you can reduce the inflammation, which is fed by sugar starch, these vegetable oils, all those things that we probably have grown to love. If you can reduce those, your body will begin to respond and regenerate and actually receive the nutrition from the food that you have and stop storing it all in your body. Thus, we have increased body sizes, myself included, increased sugar levels and high blood pressure. So those are some of the things those were the major things that I changed.